All right, so today is the last class before we start actually getting into real SQL assignments. It is September 26th, this day, and starting next time, I've rearranged how these. I rearranged the chapters. This is the first time I've rearranged the chapters where I decided to go, after chapter 6, I decided to go out of order just because SQL tables, I wanted to start SQL tables right away because we need to get into, actually making stuff. And I wanted to get into normal forms. I wanted to talk about, introduce tables, and then we spend a fair amount of time on normal forms, which I think is important. And that's in chapter 9. And we're saving transactions till later because that's just, to me, it's just more appropriate that transactions sort of come at the end, because the transactions have to do with taking several SQL statements together and lumping that up into one indivisible operation, which will either succeed or fail. And if you have a sequence of 3 or 4 operations that you want to all be done together in a single unit indivisibly, and it fails somewhere along the line, you want it to go back to where it was before it started. You want to go back to that state and just say, something's wrong. Anyway, so to do that kind of thing, you need to have a transaction. But if you're just enforcing a constraint on a single relation or on a single table, like having the range of an attribute be a certain range or something, that's done in triggers. The kinds of constraints that we talked about in chapters that we have been talking about in chapter 6, constraints and predicates, those that cannot be enforced just by specifying a primitive type in a particular way, like a bar chart can only be 20 characters long or something. That's a parameter of the particular primitive type. If you want to do something like status has to be within the range of 1 to 100, then you need to use a trigger. So if we recall, chapter 6 is, I'm just going to real kind of quickly, I'm going to go to one-page scrolling. So in here we talk about, again, the database constraints mean that in the beginning it talks about this golden rule, and that means that the state of the result of an operation will never leave the database in an inconsistent state. It'll either not allow it, or, if it would leave the database in an inconsistent state, it doesn't allow it, so it doesn't let it happen. It doesn't let it happen. And so it's important that we define these constraints, correctly. But also, this, of course, is a feature of a database that we don't find in any other, sort of built-in tool. There's no way to do this in Excel. You can't enforce what people type into the cell of Excel, you can have autocorrect in Microsoft Word, but oftentimes it does correct it for you. But you can always change it to some, if a word is misspelled and it corrects it for you, you can always change it back to its misspelled version if you choose. But in a database, you define these constraints for the purpose of enforcing them. unequivocally enforcing them. So here's some examples. Supplier status must be in the range of 1 to 100. London must have a status of 20. These are things that are additional constraints that cannot be implemented just by defining a primitive type. And one Monday we went over how to express constraints, and we learned about these keywords, these key operations, and this is a constraint called CX1, and what it is this first one where a supplier status must be in the range of 1 to 100 inclusive. So that means we are saying that anything outside that any S where there is a status outside 1 to 100 is not, it's not consistent. It's not allowed. So so that's got to be empty. So that's one way of expressing this. This is another way of expressing it, and this and sort of implies, like for all S, this has to be true. Or really, it's you have S and this. Both these things are true. So you take all of S, you have that, but then you also have this, and what's only true is when you have S and this. So that means that you could have some S's in there that are not that, or it's possible to have an S that's not that, but we don't allow those. Okay, we only allow S's where this is also true. And so as you know, the quiz. Let's look at the quiz. The quiz is this time is simply to write the constraint statements for these. Parts cannot weigh more than 100. Shippers cannot ship quantities greater than 1,000, and so on. So, the quiz on last time, the quiz on Monday was quiz number 10, which was these same constraints, but you just had to identify which tables or what operations on which tables we need to make sure follow the constraints. And so, for example, the parts table, you have to make sure that you don't put a part in there that is, you have to make sure that after the operation is done, that there cannot be a part, or that there cannot be a tuple in there that's a part, that represents a part that weighs more than 100. If the operation that you are about to do causes that, then the database should not let you do it. And so what kind of operations can cause that? Well, inserting into the parts table could certainly cause that, but also updating a tuple in the parts table could also cause that. If you were to take an existing part that weighs less than 100 and you were to change it to have it weigh more than 100, then the database should not allow that either. Okay, so that's not inserting into the parts table. That's just updating a particular part in the parts table. So, so I think what I'll do is I'll set these aside for the moment. Why do I have two? Okay, you're right. So I'm going to set these aside at the moment, and let me go back to these here in the book. Why not? Where are they? Here, these ones. And these are good examples because these things not only say, they give you the answers, not only which ones cannot be done, but how you actually, what the actual where clause or something like the where clause should be. So I'm going to show you how we would actually implement these things in the SQL today, okay? And so what I did was, before I came today, I went and found another quiz that we're going to have sometime where we actually have to write triggers for these constraints, okay? I found that. Found it here. And so I'm just going to go through just to remind myself, and I'm just going to go through and just show you these because they're very small, and you can get the idea. And then starting next week, we're actually going to be doing SQL and everything, and you'll sort of have this already under your belt. But I think this is a nice appropriate time to demonstrate this because it connects right into the sort of the quote theory that we've been doing. So let me start with supplier status values must be in the range of 1 to 100. So let me log into something. I think Richard, this was, I can't remember. Oh, it's at least that. Oh, no, it's not that. Richard, that, oh, it's this one. No. Hi. Oops, hi. I think it's this one, but yeah, I gotta remember what my cPanel. And I don't know if it's this one or the other one. Let me see what's in here. Yeah. So by the way, are you like really sweaty? Or is it just me because I walked over from the parking lot? I think that must be me because I walked over from the parking lot. This reminds me when I first moved here I came from Minnesota, and it was back in 1987 or something. And it took me about 2 years to get used to the humidity. I mean, really, people would say, "Oh, it's going to take you 2 years to get used to the humidity." I thought, 2 years, but man, but I would feel just like this every single day. I feel like this, just get used to it. But then your body kind of doesn't sweat so much, and then I go back up to the mainland, and it's like it's a normal day. My skin's all flaky because it's all dry. It's too dry up there. So here we have our supplier parts table, and so what's this first one here that I was going to do? It is supplier status values must be in the range of 1 to 100. Okay, so that would be a supplier's thing, supplier's status. So it's going to be in the suppliers table. Here's the suppliers table. And we want to make sure the status never is greater than 100, and it's always between 1 and 100 inclusive. So let's make a trigger. Now, if you don't see trigger there, it's because it's because it's under more triggers. Okay, I'm just going to put that. So there are no triggers to display. I'm going to add a new trigger. Okay, now I don't know if it's this way in all SQL programming languages, but it probably is. You can have triggers before and after, and you can have triggers on insertions, on updates, and on deletes, because those are the ones that change something. Okay, so and you can only have one trigger per thing. Right? So we are concerned about we want to have a trigger before we insert something. We want to have a trigger before we insert something, and we also want to have a trigger before we update something. So there's there's 2 times you can have it, before and after, and there's 3 events on which a trigger can be triggered. So what's the combination? So it's 6, right? 6 possible combinations. So a table can have up to 6 triggers, okay, at 1 for each one. So that means if you got to check more than one thing, so sometimes triggers can be kind of complicated because you're checking a lot of things depending on what's getting updated or inserted or whatever. Right now we only care about the status, and we only care about the status being having to be in the range of 1 to 100. We could have other constraints on the status, and if we did, and it had to do with the status could not take on certain values, or if it's a status for in a particular city, it's got to be a certain range or something. Those would all be added here in like a separate if statement. So it would be helpful. It's helpful to separate your triggers and so on. Anyway, so here's how we would do it. All triggers start with a S, but we're going to name it. So I'm going to name this just S before insert. I don't know why. This seems to make sense to me. And so in this language of SQL, it's this block structured language. It's a lot like a language called PL1, IBM's first attempt at coming up with a block structured language with if, then, else's, and so on. We have a begin. Everything starts with a begin, and everything ends with an end. And inside, we can start having some statements here. So really what we want to do is we want to look at if the new status is less than 1 or the new status is greater than 100, then we want to do something. What do we want to do? We want to print out an alert kind of thing. So the way we print out an alert kind of thing is this is just like unique to MySQL, I think. You do a signal. Okay, you signal a state, and it's a particular state which will send a text, which will stop what it's doing, and it'll send a text message out as the return string or as the error message. So you're defining it. This is like it's almost like a try-catch kind of thing, sort of. It's kind of like the try part. It's kind of like the catch part, I guess, or whatever. So you signal SQL state 45,000, just a number. Set message text equals status must be from 1 to 100.
Where did the 45,000 come from?
It's just what it is. It's just what it is. I'm not sure. Let's look at signals SQL state 4500. Okay, wait. Are we done here? I got to end the if. I'm going to do a Google search trying to find out. End if. Okay, that should work. So let me just go. I accepted it. So now our trigger's there. And now if I go to insert, yeah, it's okay. If I go to insert, I'm going to say S6, S name of Halverson, status of 101, and the city of, Hono. I only have 6 characters for the city, huh? Well, whatever. Hono. Go. Status must be between 1 and 100. Excuse me. So we see that it did not accept it. Well, so let me try to be sneaky here. I'm going to go. Forget it. I'm just going to try to change one of these to something outside the range. So let's try to change Smith to 0. Oh, why did it let it happen? Oh, because there's no update trigger. Duh. I got to put in an update trigger. All right, let's put in an update trigger. I'm going to make it easy for myself. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to copy this, copy, and I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to go new trigger, and I'm going to say S before update, S before update. And I'm just going to paste that back in here. And does that work? If the new status is New stat. Yes, this should still work. Same message. Everything works good. Go. All right. Now that's accepted. Now you notice. Obviously, this is going to be obvious, but if we were adding a constraint like a primitive type, wait a minute. I'll start out by saying, of course, we've added a constraint on status, but there's a record in there that's already violating the constraint. Okay, right. Well, there's nothing we can do about that when we're adding constraints this way. If we were to add a constraint on status itself, like let's say we had a status in there of 1,000, and then we wanted to add a constraint saying that the status can only be 3 digits, then it would probably either not let us add that constraint, or it would truncate. Let's see. If you're changing the data type to something that's, well, let's just see what happens. I bet you MySQLs are different. So first of all, I'm going to, I've already got those 2 constraints in there, don't I? I'm going to set I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to set the status to 100. I should be able to do that. That'll work. Okay, fine. I cannot set the status to 101 now because I do have the update constraint in there. Boom, doesn't let me do it. Good. So that update constraint works. It doesn't just, what do? I got to escape out of here? Yeah, okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to be more restrictive. I'm going to say, nope, can't be between, it can't be between 0 and 100. It's got to be between 0 and 99. Okay? And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go in and add another constraint in here, which says the number of digits of status cannot be more than 2. Okay? So that if it can only be 2 digits, then the highest it can be is 99, right? Can't even be 100. We have a 100 in here, so let's see what happens when we try to change this constraint of status. We're going to change that we're going to change this status to integer 2. See what happens. Let us do it. And now, integer 2, let's go back and see what happened to that 100. It's still there. What integer 2 really means. Status int 2. Okay, what if I do, I'm going to remove these triggers. I'm going to remove the add. I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to drop this trigger. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the before insert. So now the only restriction on inserting is that it's got to be 2 digits. I'm going to try to insert a new one. Oops. Insert. I'm going to try to insert SNO S6. Do I have S6? S7. Name. Oops, S7. Name is Johnson. Status of 333. City, no, status of 100. City of St. What's a 6 kilo? Okay, okay, I'm baffled by this. I don't know what integer 2 actually means. Let's try to find out what it means. S8. You know, it could be there's some switch I gotta add. That's baffling to me. So I guess that this int2 doesn't really do anything. Just still must use an integer. This means 2 bytes. I'm going to try one more thing. Insert SN of S9. What's 2 to the 16th is 65,535. Let's do 65. Let's do 66,000. City of Kailua. Okay, so I do not know what int2 does. I entered in a number that would require a full 11-digit integer because it takes 32. Well, it's more than 16. It's more than 2 bytes. It's 3 bytes. It takes at least 3 bytes. And so I'm not sure what the integer. But okay. Anyway, this was a big tangent. What I have shown you that does work, and that's triggers and to enforce constraints. And so what I've just learned from this little exercise is that this constraint here of int2 either doesn't mean what I think it means, or it doesn't, it's not enforced in this SQL, which is it's INNODB engine. So I'm not sure. I thought that was the most restrictive, that it forced everything. And or there's some setting, there's some constraint, there's some special thing like about a set for that particular constraint to be enforced. Because anything other than int11, anything other than using 4 bytes to represent an integer requires more work for the underlying engine. If it's storing integers using 4 bytes, in other words, 32 bits, then it's happiest. It doesn't have to do anything. If you start making it smaller, then it's got to actually do something extra to check, to enforce something, and it could be that check is just not turned on. That could be a constraint of MySQL in the setup. There's a bunch of parameters that I just install with the defaults. And so anyway, that is how we would do a trigger for protecting the status being between 1 and 100. So let's go back to our quiz. I think it'd be interesting to just do the ones on the quiz. So where is the quiz again? It's must be here. Parts can't weigh more than 100. No, that's pretty easy. Let's do parts. So parts looks like this, and so we're talking about both an update to parts and an insertion into parts. I don't know why this is so slow. That's strange. I don't know why it's so slow. I wonder if it had anything to do with what I just did. Okay, so I'm going to add a trigger, and it'll be P before insert, and we want to make sure we're going to begin and end And we inside we want to do if new weight is greater than 50, and let's check to see if the guy enters in a negative weight or a zero weight. Okay, you can't have weight at 0 either. Let's just do what the question says. Okay, if new weight is greater than 50, then we want to do that SQL or that signal SQL state 45,000 set message text equals red. Is that what we're doing? Red parts? That's just the same as quiz 16. No, parts 100. This is 50. Oh no, it is different. Okay, so we're doing 100. 100. Then part weight IGHT cannot exceed 100. And if. Okay, so that would be that's fine for the insert, and we would put the same thing in update also. P before update. So you can see these are pretty easy to put in. And now if we try to insert, if we try to update a part to be greater than 100, 101, it will not let me do it. Part weight cannot exceed 100. Okay, great. Escape. All right, so what's the next one? Oops. Shippers shipping quantities greater than 1,000 pieces must have a status of 10. Okay, shippers shipping quantities. Okay, so this is a little bit harder. All right, anyway, so this is more complicated. Shippers shipping quantities greater than 1,000 pieces in a single shipment. So we have to so this is going to be affected by shippers shipping quantities greater than 1,000. Okay, so this is all about the SP table, because we're looking at quantity of pieces, number of pieces in a single shipment. So if we're updating, okay, so first of all, if we're updating the SP table, if we're adding or updating to the SP, okay, this has to have triggers. This has to have triggers before insert in SP, before update in SP, and before an update in S. No. Oh yes, but and an update in this, because if we change the status of a shipper, let's say there's a shipper that's got a status of 30, and they're shipping 1,000 pieces, and then something happens, and that status of the shipper goes down to 20, then all of a sudden the shipping then we'd be in violation. So we have to keep so if there is an update to the status of a shipper, and the update is making it less than 20, or making it less than 30, then we got to go over and look in the SP table to see if there's any shipments from that shipper before. Otherwise, we might reject it. Otherwise, we should reject it. So let's start with SP. So I'm going to go over to the SP table. Why does this take? Okay, SP table is right here, and I'm going to add a trigger. And so let's add a trigger, and I got to do SP before insert. This is going to be tricky. So begin. Now first we got to let's see what the quantity is first. If new QTY is greater than 1,000, then we're going to do something. Greater than 1,000. Okay, so it's greater than 1,000. Then now we need to look at the status of the shipper. Got to look at the status of the shipper. So we need to set status. You put an ampersand in front of a variable that you're declaring. Yes. Equals. Select status from S where SNO equals new SNO. Okay, so now the status, this status will equal the status of the shipper. And if stat is less than 30, I guess I don't need parentheses, although it's okay to put parentheses. Then I got to do this signal state thing. Signal SQL state 45,000 set message text equal shipper must have status of at least 30 when shipping more than 1,000 parts, whatever. I think I need to do single quotes. Semicolon. Okay? And that is end if. And I think that's all I have to do, right? End if. End. So, huh?
What does EMTS do? Instead of EMT showing up when you type in.
What is the what?
When you type in the word end.
In the end? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, what is S? I don't know what that is. Sorry. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure. First of all, I'm going to say, let me save this. Y minus signal state 45,000. To signal a generic SQL state value, use 45,000, which means unhandled user-defined exception. There's a bunch of some other ones, I guess. And then MySQL triggers what is end S. MySQL end S. Difference between end S and end. See what that does. I'll have to look it up. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure what it is. Doesn't do anything different. Oh, it's searching. End session, maybe? Okay. Anyway, let's do. Let me finish. It's 2:23. Let me finish this. Oh, it's only 45. Okay, so let me finish this. SP before insert. So that's for inserting into SP. We're doing this one. So when we update, same when we update a shipment. So let me edit this. And we have to do the same thing when we update. So let me close this. Let me do a new one. SP before update. Okay. And then we have to check the stat. So then we have to go to suppliers, and we have to watch for a supplier changing a status down below 30. And if that's the case, we have to look and see if there's any shipments where the supplier is shipping over 1,000. And if there is, we don't let them do it. So that's going to be in suppliers. And so let's go to triggers. And we're already doing a before update. Okay, so we're also doing, so we have to put it in both of these. So let's start with this one. And that checks to see if the status is there. That's one check we gotta do. We'll leave that check in there. Now we gotta do another one here, and it's basically this one. So let's paste that in there. I'm gonna widen this up a little bit, maybe. And okay. So the first, I don't want this begin end here. I don't want this on here either. Okay, so no, this is a status. So if the new status is less than 30, I'll tell you, let's make it easier for us. If old status is greater than or equal to 30, and new status is less than 30, then we got to do something. We got to check. Might be okay. Got to check. So we're going to set the quantity, quantity Q T Y. No, I'm going to do it differently. Set a count. C num. Set a number. I'm going to select the count. Set the count of from SP where SNO equals new SNO and QTY equals, no, QTY is greater than 1,000. So I want to, okay, so here we have a case. Okay, so we're inserting something, or we're updating into the suppliers, and specifically we're looking for suppliers. We're looking for an update where the old status was greater than or equal to 30, and the new status was less than. And the new status. Maybe we should just skip this because it's possible that this trigger was put in earlier, you know, and this, the way it is now, it assumes that the data in there is correct already, and that there is no, there would not be a supplier that's shipping over 1,000 with a status of less than 30. You know, if we have this thing in there, then we're assuming that. Let's not even assume that. There's no reason why we would need to. Okay, so we're updating a supplier. If the new status of that supplier is less than 30, then whatever it is, whatever it was before, we're going to check anyway. What we do is we add up all of the records in SP, all of the tuples in SP, or in other words, all the shipments in SP by the supplier, by that supplier, and their quantity is, and the quantity is greater than 1,000. So those are the ones we have to worry about. And if this comes out to be anything, then we have to reject the update. So if num is greater than 0. If num is greater than 0, then we have a problem. What's the problem? We have a supplier who's being updated, and their status is less than 30. I should do. Okay, it's possible that they're. I'm just going to leave it like this. All right, so this will catch any updates to S before, and we also need insertions. No insertions. Do we need insertions? No, we do not need insertions. The reason we do not need insertions is because we will never be inserting a new supplier in the suppliers table that already has a shipment in the SP table. We cannot put a shipment in the SP table unless that supplier is already in the suppliers table. So we do not have to worry about inserting a new supplier with a status of less than 30 where they have a shipment in progress where the quantity is greater than 1,000. That supplier will have no shipments in process. They will not have any shipments, because you can't have a shipment unless the supplier's in the table, and the supplier's not in the table yet. So this is all we need for this problem, I think. So let's see if this takes. It does. So now we should be able to test it. I'm going to try to, let's see some suppliers here. Anybody less than 30? Jones. I'm going to try to add a shipment with Jones, shipping something over 1,000 parts. Let's see what Jones has got something in there already, doesn't she? Doesn't he or she? Don't they? We're supposed to be gender neutral now, and we're not supposed to say he or she, and we're supposed to say they. So let's see what, even though it's a singular, even though we're only talking about one Jones, we say they. So let's see what Jones has got in supply in the supply line already. That's S2, right? This one. So I'm going to try to change this to 1,300. Shippers must have status of at least 30 when shipping more than 1,000 parts. Alrighty. Okay, I'll just let that be then. Alright, is anybody shipping more than 1,000? Okay, so let's find somebody who is over 30. Let's find a supplier that is over 30. We've got Adams. No, Adams isn't shipping anything, though. Blake. Blake is shipping something. Let's go to here. What is... S3 Blake. Okay, so S3. Here's Blake's shipment. Okay, so let's change Blake's to 1,200. Not a problem. Blake can ship 1,200 of P2s. That's not a problem. But let's say some disgruntled somebody goes in and gets everybody to crowdsource the rating of S or whatever, and this guy gets Blake. Poor Blake gets downgraded to 29. Oh, shippers must have a status of at least 30 when shipping more than 1,000 parts. Now, it would be good, and probably when this assignment actually comes up, I'll probably have you put in some more kind of error message, some more meaningful error message, because we have all the information to say, like, you know, who. In fact, we can even look and see what part it is if we want to. We can find it and then search the parts table to find out what the part is and display that out in the error message if we want to. But you know, that's later. But anyway, so this won't let me set the status. This won't let me downgrade the status because Blake has got a shipment of over 1,000. And if we set the status, it's going to violate, you know, that's going to be inconsistent. Then we'll have a shipment in there, a status lesson. So this simply just does not let it happen. You know, you're going to have to live with Blake having a status of 30 until his shipment is out of the SP table, and then we can go ahead and go back again and try to set Blake down. All right. So okay. So I thought this would just give you sort of an introduction to triggers. This is not going to be, this will come in an assignment soon, but it'll be later on, probably around when we start talking about stored procedures. And so this is the simplest kind of programming. And then after that, there's what are called stored procedures, and those are invoked in other ways. And in fact, you make stored procedures so you put them in as SQL statements. So they're actually like functions in SQL where you've got a call. Instead of you've got an SQL statement, you have a call a call to a procedure with arguments and everything. And lots of times when you're doing insertions or inserting a new, inserting something new into your database, and it really consists of several records or something, or it's going to affect several tables all at once. You collect all the data for somebody, and then you get it all, then you insert it in, and oftentimes you will instead of in your program like like PHP or even in C# or Java or whatever, instead of in your program writing a sequence of insert statements or SQL statements, you will just write a stored procedure, and so you write it in MySQL, and then you just call it, with a call. You say insert customer, and it'll have a bunch of kind of parameters and arguments, and then that goes in, and then the stored procedure he'll treat it as a transaction, and everything's got to go in fine before the thing is in. If it's inserting along the way and something messes up and it can't finish, then it rolls back to where it started and says, sorry, this thing failed, but the state of the database is back before you even try to insert the first thing. So you won't end up with your database in a state where something's partially inserted and you can't finish, and then so then what? All right, so I guess I'm done today. I'll see you Monday. Any questions? All right, I'll have a more interesting assignment for you on Monday. So thanks for watching. Okay, thanks for watching.